Well, thank you so much. Stephane, I haven't jumped in Discord lately. Since the campaign started, how many new members to the Discord? How
I think
is that place
we're
jumping?
at yeah, I think we're at 1800 right now.
Nice. I
Um,
I mean, the last time I think when I first joined, it was probably around, I want to say like 250, 300.
yeah, yeah, definitely. The community has actually just been amazing, but I'll talk about that as part of this, Kickstarter journey. But it's really been incredible.
That's awesome. All right, let's just jump right in and let everybody else kind of join in on the conversation and dive over these first couple minutes. So, Stefan, let's just start with a little bit about you, the studio, the game, and then we could dig into Kickstarter.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm the founder and game director at 81 Monkeys. Um, and we're here to talk about our Kickstarter, which is currently running for our game World of Antera. For those in the audience that don't know, World of Antera is a innovative, modern yet retro-inspired RPG. It's open world. That's often how people, especially Kickstarter projects, tend to explain their games. Is it's like a mix of old and new. It's a very common kind of trendy thing. Um, I really believe our game is more of an innovative experience. Um, and I think what makes it wonderful is the retro, uh, you know, inspiration and look and feel of the game is uh, ever present. So definitely encourage people to go check out the trailer online. It's on YouTube or on our Kickstarter. Yeah, I've been in the industry now for, geez, I don't know, probably I guess about 15 years. I started on the retail side of video games, working for GameStop. Um, and I worked at a number of studios and I don't know, I guess on about 8 or 9 projects in total. And I now have a wonderful studio with a wonderful team. There's 12 of us right now, and we're getting to work on our dream game. This is really our studio defining project, and it's something that we've been working on for close to 4 years. Not full time. We were doing that while we were working on work for hire projects, but yeah, it's definitely a very exciting time for us right now.
Awesome. That I really enjoyed, meeting you fairly recently and our initial conversations, and then just being able to follow along with the ongoing development of Antera, seeing how that's going, seeing how through our conversations, you get super excited about new releases, right? New innovations, the creativity that has been showcased by your team in coming up with new novel, not only player experiences, but just on the development side, the tech and the software, the innovations that you use to actually deliver them some of those player experiences. So this has been a lot of fun for me, and it's then really fun to be able to see the Kickstarter launch and then be successful. We're over double the goal today, which is a pretty incredible result. Especially honestly, when you look at what funding on Kickstarter has been like for indie games as of late. Um, there's not a lot of games that are actually reaching this level. So it's been quite successful. And yeah, let's kind of dive into what's been going on behind the scenes on Kickstarter. You want to talk to kind of take us through your path in preparing for and getting ready for and launching your Kickstarter?
Yeah, yeah. Thanks for that, Nate. Um, you know, it's interesting. I don't really get to talk about the kind of systems and the tools and the process that we go through in making this project and those innovations. I am super excited about those, and it just you don't get to talk about that very much when the Kickstarter, because everybody is really focused on the experience that you're creating. So I'm really glad that you brought that up. Um, This is interesting. Like, I'm here talking about a Kickstarter that's currently happening. We have 8 days left. We're at about 275,000 Canadian. Um, but I can't think of a better time to have this conversation. So I've been really looking forward to this, and something that I think anyone who's on here from our Discord would know that I really value transparency. I love sharing the process, and so you can expect that from this now. Um, and I hope that for anyone in the audience that's considering participating in a Kickstarter in the future, working with a team towards that goal, I really hope that you get value out of this conversation now, and that certainly is my goal and my reason for being here today. Yeah, I think I'd like to start a little bit before the Kickstarter and kind of like give a bit of a history and share that journey up to the point today before sort of getting into some of those key learnings. Um, it's really amazing. I've spoken to some studio founders who some of them have gone on Kickstarter, some of them haven't, but these studio founders are massively successful today. Um, and it was surprising how many of them had a similar story to what I'm about to share. It was actually really validating um, for me. So if I go back a couple months ago, we've been working on this game, like I said, for 4 years. We've been really just a struggling startup game studio, taking on work for hire, not paying ourselves, what we're worth, but doing it because we believe in each other. We believe in what we're capable of doing, and we believe in the studio that we're creating, and we definitely believe in World of Antera. But we worked on work for hire projects and just attempted to try and generate some revenue and profit early on so that we could fund our dream game, which is World of Antera. And about 2 months ago, we were working for a work for hire project, and it was going really well. I mean, we made such fast project progress on this game, and we're really proud of it. It was innovative, and as Nate said, innovation is something that's really, you know, um, really important to us here at 81 Monkeys. And unfortunately, that client wasn't able to fulfill on all of their financial commitments to us, and that actually made things really difficult. So essentially, our funding dried up about 2 months ago, and
Wow.
our I actually overextended a little bit. I hired some people because I expected the funds to be there. I expected us to be funded till the end of the year without Kickstarter. And so as 2 months started getting closer to our Kickstarter date, it was like really tough. I was losing sleep. There's nothing more important to me. The thing that like stresses me out the most about being an indie studio owner, an indie studio developer, is my commitment to the team. It really is the thing that keeps me up the most at night. It's, the idea that we may run out of money before Kickstarter was like, it was like really crushing for me and really difficult. And so I started reaching out to try and scrape together some funds. People were saying no. I was getting a lot of no's, asking people in my network to lend money, asking interested publishers to lend money, and I was getting a lot of no's. And I went to my wife and I said, we got to sell the car. And she was like, let's do it, no problem. And I mean, I'm just so lucky to have a family that supports what I do. So yeah, we went, got the car fixed. We were about to sell it, and then I ended up getting a yes. And somebody said, you know what, I can help you guys out. I'll lend you some money, and got some money in. Basically, we limped into this Kickstarter like almost like a marathon runner that can't make it across the finish line, and someone had to kind of help us that last little stretch to get across the line. Now, I want to just stop for a second and point out sharing funding issues during a Kickstarter could occur as a big concern, right? Like we have people who are backing us who are counting on us on having a stable foundation to make this game. So I just want to point that out because it's not all doom and gloom. This is a problem that we had that we no longer have, and I'll get into why. But I just wanted to share the kind of like the some of the trouble, some of the roller coaster that we've been on. So yeah, so we get to our Kickstarter and it goes live. And at this point, it sort of occurred like the world was against us. Like people just didn't believe that we were going to be able to achieve our goal. We got, and it kind of occurred like I was the only one at that point that believed that we could hit a reasonable amount of funding on Kickstarter. And so day one started, we sent out, I think we had like 2,500 people pre-signed up to our Kickstarter. It might've been about 3,000 by that point.
Can
And
you actually elaborate when you say like everybody,
yeah,
like you were the only one that believed you would hit your goal? Is this your network? Is this publishers? Is this, when you initially launch and some of the feedback that you're getting from, early backers? Where's this coming from?
this was coming from, it was coming from publishers. I mean, it was coming from people in my network. It was coming from people on our own team. Now, I have to say that it's not necessarily that everyone is coming out and saying you're not going to succeed or you're not going to achieve your goals. And a lot of it is just the story that I created through these conversations that like aren't necessarily true. It's just how things start to occur to you. And so, but yeah, I definitely think, I mean, here's the type of things people would say is, oh, you haven't done a Kickstarter yet. You're not going to have that trust, or, you don't have a community like other games do. A lot of people compared us to Sea of Stars, which is totally reasonable comparison, I think. And yeah, they had a great game. They had The Messenger and they had a hugely successful Kickstarter. And it's that type of, I think people have a tendency to try to temper expectations. It's like almost like they're doing you a favor. But that can often occur as they're not supporting you. So I mean, I'm applying some self-awareness in that, I manage that feedback, but it's difficult. It's difficult when you feel like you're the only one that thinks that this could succeed. So, and as far as the team are like, they believed, I think they were like optimistic, but wanted to be cautious. And I'm sitting there up front, like, hitting the drum and go, go, go.
As we
Yeah,
often have to do as, the vision holders, and founders, right? You got to
there were
have,
many. Yeah,
yeah,
sorry, go on.
you got to have those people on the team that are, relentlessly kind of ambitious and optimistic. A startup game company, making games, all this stuff is really, really, really hard. So you need those people to continue to give you the energy to continue to power through when it's not easy. And again,
Yeah,
most of the time it's not easy, right?
yeah, yeah. And I mean, it's good to have the experience that I'm sharing. I think it's good to have it in your mind, anybody who's planning to do this, because it can start to occur as the weight of the world is on you, at that
Hmm.
moment in time. But it really is just, I think a lot of it is just our interpretation of things. And also a manifestation of our own fears and insecurities. As much as I'm championing this and saying that we can do this and we can hit multiple hundreds of thousands of dollars on Kickstarter, obviously, well, maybe not obviously, but I have my own doubts and fears, and so those start to really have an impact on you. So
Right. Even, from the psychological standpoint, you're priming yourself for negative feedback. And then as a result, you're more likely to see the negative feedback and not see the positive feedback.
yes, 100%. Yeah, actually, I'm going to get into when things shifted to be positive and how actually difficult that was. But so yeah, so our Kickstarter started. I think it started on September 24th. Oh, sorry, August, August 24th. And we emailed all of the people who had signed up for our Kickstarter. So those are, you asked me who those are. Those pre-signups are. So people actually can go to your Kickstarter page before it's live, and there's just a single little page, one image, and like a paragraph of text and no other context. You can't even have a link in there, I don't believe, to your website. And so people go and look and they're like, oh, this sounds interesting. I want to be notified when it goes live so I can learn more about it, basically. And so they clicked this button, and we got up to about 3,300 people. I can't remember the exact number. And we emailed out, and I remember right around that time, actually, Kickstarter reached out to us, and they had reviewed our page because you have to submit it. Actually, that's not true. I went on LinkedIn, and I actually paid for, I started the trial for like a premium, whatever, LinkedIn subscription, because that was the only way I could contact certain people. And I contacted like 5 people at Kickstarter. I just like spam them with messages, and I'm like, you got to check out our game. I'd love some feedback. And they got back to me, and they actually, not only did they get back to me, they said, we love your campaign. We're gonna add it to our Projects We Love banner. So here I am at the start of Kickstarter with the Projects We Love banner, and 3,500 people signed up, and I'm feeling really positive. And I remember I sent an email out the day before the Kickstarter started to Kickstarter, and I said, hey, what kind of conversion do you expect us to have on 3,500? I'm thinking we're going to get like 30% conversion on that. And they got back and they're like, oh, 5 to 10%. And I remember reading that like, oh my God, 5 to 10%. Like, that's like the horrible. We're going to be no near our goal from these people. And our Kickstarter started, and backers started rolling in. And I think we got like 18,000 first day. By the way, our goal was 130,000 Canadian. I don't know if I shared that or not, but after I think like 4 days or something, we got down to or 5 days, we got down to we earned like $5,000 that day or something like that. So it went from like 18,000 down to 5,000, and we weren't near our goal. And it was the 5th day, and I'm like honestly thinking to myself, I might have to cancel this because we can't just barely get our goal. That's just not going to work for us. And I think it was on that day, it might have been the day before, I got this notification, and a YouTuber was announced they were going to go live and do a Kickstarter review. And I was like, oh, this is really exciting. I'm like super confident about our page. I'm like, this person's going to love it. So I went and shared it on our Discord, and we all tuned in live to watch this person critique our Kickstarter page. So remember, I'm already concerned that where our trajectory is going. And this person does this review, and they start off super excited. They love the trailer. They're like, this game looks spectacular. Based on this trailer, I would totally back this project. And then they're like, I think the team can do it. So it's like going really well. And then they start scrolling through the page, and it became quickly apparent that this person wasn't there to champion our game. They're really there to be critical of it, because this person started going to specific sections and skipping over stuff, and going to specific sections and pointing out how this wasn't a good way of doing things, and ended up giving us a D.
Oh, wow.
Which, for those of you that don't know, a D is like 1 over a fail. And oh man, that was tough. I was like, because here I am, like, our trajectory's not looking good. We're not hitting our goal. And now this YouTuber who's seemingly experienced on Kickstarter is giving us a D. And not only that, our team was on there. Like, we were all watching this. And that was a really difficult moment. And however, the team and I got together, and we actually went through the points. So we wrote out all the feedback this person had given us. We went through all the points, and a couple of things occurred to us. One, there was tremendous value in what they were saying. We actually stopped doing what we were doing, and we went and updated the Kickstarter page based on some of the feedback. For example, the splash image that we were using didn't show the consoles that we were on, and it didn't show that we were making a single player and co-op experience. And he pointed that out as a big problem, and we were like, oh my God, that's a really good point. So we went and updated that splash image. If you go to our Kickstarter now, you'll see what it was updated to. That's like totally logical feedback. Unfortunately, other feedback that this person shared wasn't so valuable. In fact, it went contrary to my own research, and it went contrary to the advice Kickstarter gave us. And so I think I'll share that more in the learnings, but that was a really difficult moment. I actually emailed that YouTuber, and I thanked them for the critique, and I told them that we actually took some of your feedback and we've already applied it. and they replied with one word: interesting.
Hmm.
But yeah, and so the next day after this, the next day somebody posted on our Discord that there's an article about our game. And this is literally a huge turning point for us. Some journalist found our game, whether it was through our community sharing or whether they saw on Kickstarter, I'm actually not sure, but they wrote this article and it was glowing. Like, I mean, this person said they wanted to live in the game. They called it like a SNES Skyrim. And
I mean,
that,
come on.
yeah.
That- That's
What were you
gold
going to
right
say?
there. That is gold right there. A
Oh my
SNES
God.
Skyrim? Yeah.
Oh, so yeah, it's just like I was reading this and I'm like elated. I couldn't believe that. And instantly, because this is how a lot of game journalists and publications work, instantly there were mirror sites that were starting to redo the publication, almost the same wording. I think we got like 6 in a day in 3 different languages. And then we hit 16,000, and then the next day we hit 42,000 and blew our goal out of the water. And the next day we hit 28,000, and all of a sudden our trajectory completely changed, literally overnight. So I went from, I think I might have to cancel this, and I don't know how I'm going to pay my team in a month from now, to waking up in a whole new world. And it was a really weird experience for me. I remember feeling so anxious and stressed. I kind of felt like a bit out of control. Um, but it turned out to be the most wonderful thing that could have happened to us. And now we're at over double our goal. We have 8 days left, and more articles have been posted. And we're feeling really positive about where we're at. So yeah, that's really from a high level kind of how things went and the roller coaster that is our Kickstarter. If you were to look, like, you guys actually can, those in the audience, if you don't know, you can actually go to us website called kicktrack.com. And when you go to Kicktrack, it's Kick, TRAQ. Maybe we can share it in the chat. And you search for World of Antera, you can actually look at the data of our Kickstarter. You can see exactly the numbers that I'm talking about if you click on daily data. And if you compare that data to other successful Kickstarters, including Sea of Stars or many other ones, you'll see how our daily revenue or pledges or funding is so much stranger looking than any other Kickstarter. um, and you know, uh, recently I've spoken to publishers and they've asked me, how did you do that? And it's like a combination of things. It's certainly a bit of luck, you know, um, but some of what I think we would call luck is was designed a bit by us. So like some of the luck would be, oh, we brought a game at the right time of year with the right features that people wanted. But actually that's what we were saying to ourselves in the studio all the time, is this is a collection of features in a game experience with a visual style that people want. And when we were looking at dates to do our Kickstarter, we saw August as a really good date, looking at the release schedule of other games, looking at what we thought was going to be upcoming on Kickstarter with the limited information we could find. And we were like, this is actually a really good time to do it. And, we spent almost 2 months or 3 months specifically preparing for this Kickstarter. And so that's one thing. The journalists reaching out, we didn't even have a press kit because we were told journalists aren't going to want to talk about your game. Journalists are not interested in Kickstarter projects. We were told this repeatedly. We were told this by publishers. We were told this by Kickstarter themselves. So we didn't even have a press kit on our Kickstarter. We didn't even have one prepared. And we didn't do any journalist outreach at all. We only did community building efforts, social media stuff and whatnot. And so the fact that journalists, hit on this, and after those first articles, we had a bunch of other journalists reach out and saying, do you have a press kit? So we quickly put one together. But yeah, I mean, there's definitely some stars aligned for us with regards to that. And I think this gets into the sort of what I think is most important about a Kickstarter. Leads into why journalists cared about our game. and thought it was a story that their readers would want to learn about it. Um, and why that YouTuber was incorrect in giving us a D, because a Kickstarter is more about the product and less about the marketing than I think some people realize. So that YouTuber looked at our game and he actually said, "This game looks spectacular, and I think this team can make it." But then he went into like analyzing the Kickstarter page and kind of tearing it apart, and from like a marketing lens, I actually don't think that's really what's important. I mean, our trailer really is beautiful. We're super proud of what we did. Our Kickstarter page looks great. You know, we really care about what we put out there. If you look at any of our other stuff that we've worked on, but if you don't have a really clear vision with a feature set that's marketable, you're not prepared for Kickstarter. It doesn't matter how marketing savvy you are. I don't, I can't, this is something I can't harp on enough. What we presented on a Kickstarter is a really great vision for a product. Our Kickstarter page is really long. For those familiar with Kickstarter, there's 35,000 word limit or character limit. 35,000 character limit. We are exactly at 35,000. Like, we had to eliminate a lot of text.
Yeah, it's one of the things that I noticed, that you could scroll forever.
Yeah, it's long. I mean, it's probably too long, but we looked at it and we're like, these sections are important. And it's funny the amount of comments we get that are like, "Oh, this was really important to me," or "This was really important to me." And I think at the end of the day, that's really what connected with the journalist, was they saw a game and a feature set that resonated with them personally, and that was really what was a catalyst for them to write about it. So
yeah, a couple things I wanted to touch on here. Like, one was, these turnaround stories on Kickstarter are rare, right? It's really hard to take a Kickstarter that looks like it is trending to a failed project and then turn that into a winner. And that it's just momentum, right? There's when you get that early rush and you get an early lead, you have then people then want to jump on the bandwagon, right, and be a part of that successful project. And people are then less likely to want to join a project that looks like it's going to fail, right? So
yeah,
that is tough, right? It's actually, when I was doing Kickstarter campaign consulting, I sought out a few of those challenges. I was like, I think I can help make some changes here in a campaign, that is failing, and try to turn this around. And I was able to do that a couple of times, but again, just really, really hard. So just putting that out there, starting strong is so incredibly important. People look at, this like quick track, like backers will actually even look at that, because then they have a prediction, whether or not you're going to actually meet your goal.
right.
So yeah, that's really important. It's great to hear that we're able to turn this around, but it's also kind of serendipitous, right? I think there's, you're right in identifying, like, look, we kind of got lucky, but
Yeah,
what is luck, right? Luck is preparation meets opportunity, right? And like you said, you spent 2 to 3 months preparing for the Kickstarter. You created a game that has a clear vision with a marketable feature set. You created a trailer, right, that is beautiful, that is going to grab, some people. Not every gamer, but it's going to grab and it's going to inspire and excite, some people. So, what happened here was, your preparation created the opportunity for this person that likes these types of games to then fall in love with it through a 2.5 minute trailer, and then be in a position to then go and promote that for you.
right. Yeah,
But, then it's like, well, how would we repeat this, Stephane? Like, what, how would we, do this again? Because, it serendipitously, really had to come true, even to the point where, you mentioned that publishers, even Kickstarters, they're saying, press isn't going to be interested in your Kickstarter game. And I'm assuming that comes from experience, right? And if Kickstarter is saying it, that comes from a lot of experience.
Right.
I wonder how much the novelty, right, of actually finding and discovering the game on their own,
Hmm.
led them to write the thing versus, not only like the novelty, the discovery, the ability. Like I love being a curator and bringing, things to people, right? I love being the person that discovers it and shares. I think we all love that. We all love being curators, right? Um, so, that person, by not doing like a mass PR blitz, right, or emailing everybody in media, right, you then presented the opportunity for somebody to be the curator and present it, be the person who discovered it, versus the person that was then going to have to, compete in embargo, right, to write the article that was going to get noticed amongst the 50 other articles that were going to be written across all of games media, right? So
Yeah.
yeah, like on one hand you might say, okay, well obviously press is interested, so then we should do the press outreach beforehand. But who knows if it would actually worked out that way, right? Maybe some of that scarcity is actually what worked in favor. And
Yeah, it's really interesting.
yeah, I don't have an answer here. This is not, the 41 people listening, like this is not a prescription, right? But this is just a curiosity and a conversation between me and you, a curiosity that I have about, how this has worked out and if it's really repeatable. Um, and look, like games, they're not repeatable, right? Like we're gonna put our best foot forward and put it out there, and hopefully it's gonna be successful, right? But we don't always know, and we could have shipped 4 games that were previously successful in a row, but it doesn't guarantee success for that 5th one. So none of this stuff is often really repeatable. But anyways,
I have some. So I have some. There's some steps that I can share that we took pre-Kickstarter that I think really helped.
cool.
And so these steps don't like aren't more important than the product and the vision itself. Like, what are you creating, and is this
Of
something
course.
that's going to resonate with people? Um, what we did was I actually started, even though I knew we weren't ready, I started pitching to publishers. I would go, and this is actually really easy for anyone to do. I went to conferences, online conferences. So this was during the pandemic. I went to online conferences and I just booked back-to-back pitches with publishers. So these are like usually 15-minute to 30-minute calls where I just present the game. No publisher really wants to waste their time if you don't have a demo. And I knew that, but I also was excited about the game, and I saw that as an opportunity to learn more about what you learn, get more feedback on the sort of game and the feature set, and learn what was interesting about it, and just find out and just scrape any information from these publishers about marketing or about the process or anything I could. And I think I did it 50 times, maybe more. And I pitched the game, and through that pitching, a number of things came up. One of them was somebody called our game Skyrim with pixel art, and they said this was a, I can't remember the publisher. I think it was Modius, but they said I don't understand why an indie developer hasn't made an open world pixel art game like you're pitching to me right now. He said it's like Skyrim with pixel art, and I had been calling it like Ultima meets Zelda, I think was the kind of like what was in my pitch deck, with a touch of Stardew Valley. And
Yeah.
one of the challenges is coming up with a tagline that is in just a couple words speaks to the experience that people can expect to have in your game. So like, what are the game mechanics? What are the features? What's the scope of the project? Like, and that's why so many games reference other games in their
Right.
marketing, because that one, and we get pushback on this, and I'll talk about that in a sec, but one word like Souls like can trigger so many memories and
Hmm.
expectations. It's can be really effective. So, or Metroidvania or whatever. Um, so I actually took Skyrim with pixel art. I brought it back to the team and I said, "What do you guys think?" I actually felt really uncomfortable about it. I didn't think it actually spoke to what we were creating as effectively as some of the other taglines we were trying. But my art director, who was actually just finishing his first play of Skyrim ever, so he was
Mm.
like, he had put in about 80 hours or something like that, and he was just finishing it. He was just about to stop playing. He said, "No, I think that's actually the best one for what we're creating." So I went and took that. This is so the first step was like pitching it a lot and getting feedback and taking that feedback back to the team and discussing it and polishing it and refining the pitch. It really just refines my own vision for the game as well. But um and then getting this tagline and then taking this tagline and actually testing it. So I have a background with some marketing. We self-published our first game, Sudoku Scramble, and we did the Facebook ad thing and the cost per install thing and all of that. And so I had some experience running Facebook ads, and I'm like, you know what? I'm going to go and try this. We have a website. People can sign up to an email list. I'm going to go and try this Skyrim with pixel art to see if it resonates. So we made one image. It's actually a gameplay screenshot with a bit of touch-ups just to put in some of the visual effects that we're planning to have in the game. We didn't have, for instance, lighting and shadowing at that point. And I ran it on Facebook for like, I don't know, I think I started at like $25 a day or something, or $50 a day. And oh my God, the all it said was Skyrim with pixel art, an innovative retro inspired open world RPG. Like that was it. It didn't say it was not out. It didn't say it was coming soon. It didn't say it was
Hmm.
going on Kickstarter, nothing. And our cost per click and our engagement, like the comments and the likes and the cost per email sign up, was better than I'd ever seen on any campaign I've ever been a part of.
Hmm.
And so that was sort of like I realized, okay, this is a really great way to market the game. And so this is way before we even started the 2-month process of moving to Kickstarter. And so that really helped. Like doing that test in the, testing the tagline and using Facebook ads as a way to test, because you can target people. I can target Skyrim. People who are interested in Skyrim. I can target
Right.
Nintendo at whatever I want. So yeah, it went really well. And yeah, and I mean, I think those are some things that people could sort of, put into their strategy if they're planning to run a Kickstarter, is doing some of those things that we did. So,
Awesome. Yeah, I love the so some people will know this. I actually started the entire self-publishing initiative for indie publishers at PlayStation. So um, before me, a developer actually couldn't self-publish a game on any platform, any console platform. They all had to go through a publisher. And I'll save some of the backstory. I thought that was wrong, and I wanted to change it. But I wasn't really in a position to do that, so um, I kind of just took the initiative to create a project for myself and worked nights and weekends and lunches on this project. And I had no idea what I was doing. But how I got started was I just started picking up the phone and calling developers that I saw were working on games that I thought were cool. And literally like just cold calling them. The first phone call I made was to Dan Connors, CEO of Telltale Games. And it was because I just read an article about how he was going to bring, his next game to through publishers to Xbox and Nintendo, but he didn't mention PlayStation. So I got mad. So I just went like I just I just found their main phone number and I dialed it, and then they had like one of those directories where type in the first three letters of the person's last name,
yeah.
and I just typed in CON, and then said press 3 for Dan Connors, and I pressed it, and he said hello. So but through that process I just picked up the phone, I asked him, and I said, why not PlayStation? And then I said, what would it take, what would be interesting to you, what would you want to see out of a platform that allowed you to self-publish, and that's where I started, and I made a dozen phone calls, and I didn't have anything to pitch. I just asked for feedback, and then I came up with a pitch, and then I just continued to refine that pitch based upon the feedback that I received. Right. So the entire like concept of or the skeleton of the program, like I didn't actually create anything. I was just doing research, and then I was taking feedback from everybody else, and that's really what created that program. Um, and just going in there with with no ego about what I was presenting, even when I worked so hard on those initial pitches, right? But no ego on that, and then the willingness to then be able to take feedback and refine based upon um, all the information that I was receiving, right? And it's like you don't respond to everything. You got to use some of your intuition to kind of curate some of that feedback.
Yeah.
But when there's some experts, right? When you have 10 conversations and 8 people give you all the same point of feedback, that's a pretty large signal. Maybe I should listen to something like that. So, yeah, fantastic way to gather a bunch of information from people in the industry, from expert, right? Like we
Yeah.
pay, like companies will pay thousands, tens of thousands of dollars, right? Hundreds of thousands of dollars to consultants, to organizations to then go out and do research and pull together these reports and come back with all the analysis and give us the answers for the insights that we're looking for. And instead you paid a few $100s to go to multiple online conferences and spend a couple days pitching and gathering feedback.
Some of that was actually subsidized. There was a program that the local government was running where they would pay for indie studios to go to like 3 conventions online during the pandemic. So actually
Even
I
better.
got some of them covered. But actually I have a funny story, and thanks for sharing that, Nate. That was great. A great experience to connect with what I shared. The funny story is, I actually pitched this project to Nate. He was one of those people that at that time that was like, here's an expert, here's somebody with a lot of knowledge. If I can get, half an hour of his time, I want to do that. And you got on a call with me, and I shared the deck, and we went through it all. And unlike a lot of the other ones, you honed in on the value. You were like, this is something, a couple of features, you're like, this is something that I think developers are going to copy when you go live. Like, this is a feature,
Yeah.
this is innovative, and I'm excited by it. And I was like, I got off that call and I went to the team like, oh man, I had such a great call, and here's what he said. It was very energizing sharing with you. So
Awesome.
and a different experience than a lot of the publishers. But I mean, for their part, that's what they do all day long, project
Yeah.
after project after project. So you can't expect them to get super excited about your project. However, to Nate's point, they know what they're looking for. They know what features may connect and are marketable. They know what a good summary is for a game and how to pitch it. And so that experience of talking to those publishers and doing it over and over again, like sometimes I think I was on 12 hours in a day, maybe, like it was crazy, maybe not 12, but it felt like 12. And go and then taking all of that experience and cultivating it into what is now our Kickstarter and how it's written and what we explain and what we focus on is a big part of that sort of process.
Well, let's dive back into the Kickstarter then. So I have a couple questions right from the top. I will start with we'll just go down the campaign. The video is really interesting to me. The video is only the trailer, and I uh, I think it is common feedback that the video be presentation of not just the product, but the people like behind the team, because oftentimes the theory is that Kickstarter backers are kind of backing not just the product, but they are backing the team, the people themselves. So you removed people from the campaign and you just focused on the game. Um, that
Yeah.
obviously worked out right for you, but why go that route? And
Yeah.
why is the people thing wrong, or is it just different?
No, yeah, that's a really good question. Something that I started doing like 6 months ago was I started reaching out. I started joining Facebook groups and uh, and asking questions about Kickstarter campaigns. I backed, I don't know, maybe 8 campaigns myself, maybe more. I don't know. I have to actually look at that. But and so I would go to those campaigns I backed. I would talk to the community. I would read comments in other campaigns, and I was looking for feedback, and I was looking for, what people thought of things, and I learned a lot. It actually, a lot of that, I even managed to run polls in some Facebook groups that allowed it, where I could actually poll and say, what is the thing you hate about Kickstarter campaigns the most,
Hmm.
and actually like get votes. It was really great. um and I learned a few things that, like, guided me, and even my team, when I told them we're doing this, they're like, that doesn't make sense, why would we do that? And I had to explain, like, well, this is the feedback that I'm getting, and this is why I made that decision. But in terms of the team, I had this kind of reoccurring experience that I didn't really like seeing them and hearing in most videos. Like, I don't know what it was. It it took kind of a special person to put themselves in the video and really occur as appealing or a positive to the video. This is just
Yeah.
my personal experience. So this sentiment, though, I will carry through to a couple other decisions on our Kickstarter. So I asked myself, like, if I really believe in the project and how we're going to present it, is having the team in the video, like me, for instance, in the video, going to help, or is it might hurt? Like, man, somebody looks at me and like, oh, that guy's funny looking, and or that guy's
Right.
awkward in front of the camera. So, and that's part of it. The other part of it is we finished this trailer days before our Kickstarter, literally. Like, it was really close, and um we leaned heavily into just making the trailer look really good. Like, recorded so much gameplay footage, just over and over and over, trying to get the right sequence of events. None of the stuff in the trailer scripted, and just getting the right footage, and then getting the right audio for it, and I mean, also while doing all the other videos for the page as well. But so
Who did the
it's a
trailer
bit
and
of
the videos?
scope. Pardon me.
Who did the video and the trailers? Is that
we
internal?
did we did it all. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so our process was, our sound composer, pretty much all the sounds that are in the videos are in our game engine now, but they weren't all in there. So what we were doing was we were recording video of gameplay, and then we were sending it to our composer, sound engineer, and they were using it as a sound mock-up. So they were
Hmm.
polishing the sounds in there, and then now we have those videos, and like, okay, now we're putting the sounds in the game, and based on the way that they're in the video. But we kind of, like, that was two birds with one stone.
Right.
And so we just sent so many videos to him, and he put sounds in for all of them, and then we took those videos and then we put them into a trailer, and yeah, it all just sort of came together at the end. So yeah, so on one hand, I felt uncomfortable putting me or the studio in the video because I was not sure of the value. And on the other hand, we just didn't have the scope to do it because we were doing all this marketing on our own.
Right.
So
Right.
that's the honest answer.
Yeah, that makes sense. And actually, the second one is I feel like making that a requirement is because that was like the prevailing feedback for a long period of time. You have to put people in the video, and it can be so intimidating. One from just
Yeah.
resource time, right? The other is comfort level, right?
Yeah.
And then the idea. My thought is, we might not. Somebody's going to scrap their Kickstarter campaign, right? And that game may not come out because they don't want to put themselves on camera, and that's all
Right.
the advice that they're receiving. So,
Yeah.
um, love seeing
Very true.
this trailer only success. So 130,000 Canadian was the goal. How did
Mhm.
you come up with that number?
Yeah, this was an interesting one, and this is like that. Actually, that gentleman on YouTube was like, "Oh, this goal's so high, like they're
Right.
not going to
We
hit it."
see
For
so many goals that are like, 10, 20.
I know.
30, thousand for
Yeah.
games that
Yeah.
are going to cost so much more than that,
Yes.
to actually deliver, right?
So that was really what I was thinking about was, is this credible? If somebody looks at this, because I look at Kickstarters and I'm like, this is ridiculous. Like they're not gonna do anything with $20,000 for this
Mhm.
project. That's just not going to do anything for them. So I'm like, I talked to the team about it. I'm like, I'm not comfortable coming with a goal that doesn't actually make a difference for us, and 130,000 actually did make a difference for us. Our burn rate for the size of team we are is actually really low. And this is not me saying, I'm not bragging about paying people a low salary. I actually am not the highest paid in the studio. I just want to be clear about that. I haven't been the highest paid for a while. Um, it's 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 just we're just doing what we have to do to get here. And the most
Mhm.
important thing is that everyone in the studio is comfortable. And if anybody feels that finances are an issue, to let me know and we will correct that immediately. But because we have a team that are so committed to this project, and I'm looking forward to the moment shortly after Kickstarter when we sign with the publisher, which I'll get into in a bit, when I no longer say that our burn is really low. But we
Yeah.
were working out of my basement at my house for years. So
Yeah.
that's one of the ways we keep it low. But and now we're in shared office space. We don't have an actual studio space. So we're still really fiscally responsible from that standpoint. But
Right.
yeah, so 130 actually would make a big difference for us. Now there's a bunch of caveats to that. Um, we don't want to. We didn't want to finish. Well, I shouldn't say we. I didn't want to finish our Kickstarter with just passing 130 and having this commitment to a community of backers for instance, physical goods, which we have as an add-on. And for those that know our campaign, we do have a physical edition now, but that was something that we had sort of hidden behind a stretch goal. And I didn't want to commit to printing physical copies of this game if I'm only printing like 20 of them or 50 of them or something like that. So yeah, so it was really about credibility, and I just felt that was one of the ways we established credibility for what we're doing.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I remember that, like, we're like on day 5 and we're not hit our goal, and it's like, oh man, it'd be nice to be able to say hit our goal in one day, like a lot of other Kickstarters do. But I think we made the right decision at the end of the day. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, those projects, they don't look credible to me, right? It's either they're just using it for marketing, or um, they're using this to try to get a publisher, which means I might not get this project or my money
Right.
back, right? So
Hmm.
yeah, also really smart to put any physical items behind the stretch goals, right? Because there's a lot of um, there are net negative Kickstarter campaigns where the campaign fulfillment actually costs more than you raised, right? Because people
Yes.
underestimate the cost of manufacturing and shipping digital goods. So, what do you think your profit margin is on the Kickstarter? So, if you take in consideration what your fulfillment, costs are going to be.
Yeah, we're somewhere above 40% is what my expectation is when everything's said and done. Um, so yeah, you have platform fees, which for the majority of the platforms is going to be 30%. There's taxes that are going to be included in our price in some countries around the world. There's the physical goods themselves, so the collector's edition. There and then on top of that, now the physical edition. Um, so designing the page was really important, and coming up with the prices was something that I just really stressed over a lot, and considered a lot, and talked to a lot of different people. I couldn't charge what I would consider premium price. If I look at other projects, and I use this as an example because it's relatively recent, is Sea of Stars, and what they charged, for instance, for their physical edition, I think it was a $90 add-on. We couldn't do that. So um, I think it was like a $80 additional add-on to a tier as well, or just a $90 add-on separately. Um, So yeah, we reached out to fulfillment companies. So a lot of devs were like, "Don't do physical goods," and I spoke to devs who have smaller projects, solo devs. Um, One dev who like laments the fact that he offered physical goods he wished he hadn't, because now he's really worried about it and the amount of money it's going to cost. And I have another dev who actually did do physical goods and still does them, still sells them like via their website, and
Mhm.
actually has a video of them in their basement, like filling them, putting them together, and sending
Mm.
them out. But a lot of the advice was don't do it. And what I realized, well, I realized two things. One, people who back games tend to really want that stuff. Everyone on our team wanted that stuff. Like our team was like, I can't wait till I have a cloth map of this. And people who back tend to want it. So there is that side of things where, if you don't have some physical goods on there, it potentially will lower your backer rate by a little bit. I don't think a lot, but so that's one thing. The other thing is, how are you going to fulfill on this? How are you going to get the manufactured and ship out, and what's the cost of that? So the great thing about doing Kickstarter today that maybe wasn't so easy to do 6 years ago or something is there are companies a lot that handle fulfillment. There are also publishers that specifically kind of specialize in physical edition and physical goods fulfillment and projects. Um, and will even publish games that sort of want to do that, and seek games that want to do that. But
Right.
so we have a company. So one of them we approached is called Geekify, and we haven't signed with them. We're talking to a few, but I'm going to use this one as an example. Geekify will do all of the fulfillment needs, everything. So they will do all of the manufacturing. They have a wide range of like materials or quality, I guess. And they also will do the physical editions. They will take all of the fulfillment from Kickstarter, like all of the shipping and everything, and they'll actually ship everything out. We don't have to touch anything. All we do is just design the stuff, and that's it. And so I worked out the cost, a cost estimate on that, and then I came up with a price. Now our price is what I would consider a premium. It's in line with maybe what you'd expect if you were to go into GameStop and buy a collector's edition of a game like this.
Mhm.
And because I like, here's the balance, and I've spoken about this on, we do like developer firesides on our Discord regularly, and also just I talk to the community a lot, both through Kickstarter or through Discord or Facebook or whatever. um, this is a really important thing to understand, is your purpose for being on Kickstarter. Well, actually, no, I should say my purpose for being on Kickstarter is to raise money to help us develop this game. Um, and so backers should understand that, you hope, is that when they come and look at the prices, they're like, oh, I love this game. I want to support this developer, and I'm going to have to pay a bit more because they're raising money to develop this game. They're not simply, trying to sell some value. It's not necessarily just about the value. So you have to be comfortable with leaning into that, I think, yourselves. And so that, for instance, the Canadian, the sort of physical goods, the one that comes with a cloth map, a medallion, a letter, a sealed letter, and like a game box, no
Mhm.
physical edition in there. It's just a game box, like a collector's edition box. That's $70 Canadian.
Mhm.
And that's a price point that I was a little uncomfortable with, but there's so one thing is to consider that we're raising money to develop the game. The other thing is we want to give quality to our backers. And this is the balancing act that you have to consider when designing a Kickstarter. Is it's not in our interest to ship out really low quality stuff for a few reasons. Um, we're building a community, and we're building a franchise with World of Antera. That's ultimately our goal. Is we don't want to just launch a World of Antera and move on to the next game. We really believe in it, and we believe that could be a franchise for us as a game studio. But we also believe that people who support us now are going to we're going to gain their trust and their confidence, and part of the way we're going to do that is by giving them value. And I'll get
Mhm.
more into this in terms of how our stretch goals were designed, because they're designed to do that further. But um, so when I'm talking to companies like Geekify, I'm like, I don't want to know what the cheapest price is, because that's not what I'm going to buy. I'm going to buy something that's mid or higher, because I want people, when they get these goods, to say like, oh, this is a good product. And goodwill when we actually launch this game, because we're going to ship this stuff out before we launch. Again, it's part of the strategy. We want those people to be championing us, and so
That that's so good.
yeah, so it's a bit, that's like, and that's the balancing act, is you got to charge enough, but then they have to believe in you to do that, and then you have to fulfill on it. So it's like there's lots to consider there, but yeah, so that this is really the, it's funny, it's like the developer costs where I started, like, hey, we're raising money to develop this game, but kind of where I end up is, what is the value we're giving, our backers, and how is that value, how is that investment going to benefit us as a studio? I was at PAX, and while at PAX, I bought a um, Mass Effect shirt from a BioWare counter. So they were there. It was just there selling swag, and it was like a premium price. And I bought the shirt, and I got back to my hotel room, and I pulled it out, put it on, and tried it on in the mirror, and I'm like, this is the cheapest shirt
Yeah.
ever. Like, this is such garbage. And I'm just like, why is this company here at PAX trying to make a few $1,000s off
Right.
their fans? It's crazy to me. I would never buy another shirt from them. I'm super frustrated, and
Hmm.
it wasn't that much. It was like 25 American, but it's like, I don't understand that. Anyways, I won't go into that further, but goodwill when you're developing a game is really priceless. And it's something that I think needs to be a focus. Once you understand your game and your features, and you're good at pitching it, and you're good at marketing it, I think that focus on how do I generate this goodwill, I really think that's really important. So yeah.
Yeah. That's awesome. The anecdote about, this being a franchise, right? So it's the goodwill. You want to create a lot of value. You need to earn trust, with this community over the long term, right? To sustain what could be a franchise. Um, this is a very different situation. It's not necessarily something I'm recommending to our listeners here, our audience, but um, I'll just point out AAA game franchises, especially brand new franchises at a console launch, right? So if like Sony is making a new IP at a console launch, which they usually do, um, the install base of that IP or the console is going to be so low that they have no hopes of actually recouping their investment off that initial game. Part of the game is also to sell consoles, right? But the reality is, every console launch sells out immediately anyway, right? So a lot of consoles, like Sony won't, I don't know if they do this anymore, but we used to not spend any dollars on marketing hardware for the first couple years of a new console because we didn't need to, right? We were just going to sell out of capacity. We couldn't make them fast enough. So there was no need to spend marketing on it. But with a franchise, you're establishing, it's actually a really good opportunity to establish a new franchise because your competition is very low. How many launch games are you going to launch against? Right? There's a smaller number of games. So let's say, I've been a part of console launches where we've had like 10, 12 titles total, right? So your chances of being one of the first games that somebody picks up is really, really strong. So you can then, almost guarantee yourself, hundreds of thousands of game sales, right? But some of these games need millions of sales to actually make your money back. But it was a good opportunity for studios to establish IP, right? This is our first in a franchise. We anticipate we'll make at least 3 of these, right? We're going to lose money on this first one, but hopefully we're building, the trust with our community to build the IP so that we can invest in this franchise, over the long term. Which is, again, not something I would recommend here because usually our smaller studios aren't those that have the financial backing to be able to lose money on a bunch of game releases, right?
Yeah.
We probably need to be profitable on just about every game release. But just sharing kind of some background, some insight on some of the models and approaches out there. Let's there's a couple things that you mentioned that you wanted to touch on, just in this conversation so far. So
Yeah.
let's dive into those. You could pick something off the board yourself, or I know you mentioned wanting to talk about a publisher. You also
Yeah.
mentioned wanting to talk about stretch goals and how
Mhm.
you went about those.
I think just continuing on that conversation about our margin and pricing, there's a few things, and I know Nate, before this, you asked about just the tiers and how those were designed, those reward
Hmm.
tiers. But our stretch goals, so we hid them. There's still some hidden. We have 3 more goals to hit. I'm very confident we're going to hit our next goal, and I'm quite optimistic we're going to hit our second last goal. It's going to be quite an incredible push for us to hit the final one. We'll see. The last few days of Kickstarter campaigns tend to be the most successful. Looking at successful Kickstarters, though, looking at those kind of bigger, more successful Kickstarters, the final few days tend to be the biggest and the most successful. So we don't know what ours are going to look like. We'll see. But we hit all our stretch goals. And this was something that we got a lot of feedback on. Don't hide your stretch goals. Oh, we got to show the stretch goals. Like, how are people going to get excited about them? People would comment and say, oh, I really want to know the stretch goals. I like when Kickstarters show the stretch goals. And we were like, this was constant. And the team as well. And I just had to really say, no, let me explain this from a perspective of a community member. And then I'll actually talk about how those individuals were designed. So first of all, I'll say Kickstarter actually did say you should hide your stretch goals. It tends to work better. And that was pretty validating for me. But here's what I said. If we have a stretch goal that's designed, like, first of all, it's going to be really hard to have a stretch goal that everyone gets excited about. Like, that's going to be really difficult. So an example is, how many people are excited about a physical edition of the game that's going to cost them an extra $50? Not many. Like, it's probably 10% of the community would be excited by that. There's a small chance of fire alarms going off in my building.
Okay.
I'm just gonna wait. I'm just gonna wait and see what happens for a sec here. But and I'll finish this thought. Um, so yeah, so like, if only 10% are getting excited about that, how does revealing it ahead of time get the community excited? And so I could go through each of our stretch goals and be like, 20% maybe be excited by this, and 10% maybe be excited by this. Showing your stretch goals isn't an effective way. In fact, it may turn off people. If you hide content behind a stretch goal that, like, let's say the physical edition, that that like, somebody would only back your game if there's a physical copy, and a lot of people are like that. They may not back you because it's like, oh, I don't think they're going to hit that stretch goal, so I'm not going to back their game. So I just was like, you know what, let's hide them and let's work with our community on really generating excitement about getting close to our next goal. And then what happens is, our Discord will light up right when we start getting really close, and people are like, oh, we're 1,000 away, come on guys. And they're pushing, they're tweeting, they're sharing. And then we hit it, and then we go live. Usually we go live on our Discord, and we'll have, like, 40, 50 people in the room, and we're talking about what the stretch goal is, and we post it. It's this big moment. And so that turned out to be a really good thing that was contrary to so much feedback, by the way, including that YouTuber who gave us a D. That was one of his reasons why he thought we weren't going to succeed. But so that's one thing. I actually really, you need to hide them, and I think it makes for a better experience. The other thing is, we really fought to create value in these. So one of the things you'll notice in Kickstarter is, the very first one, when our game got funded, was we announced that backers are going to be in the credits. And normally people put that in the tiers, like, oh, you'll be in the credits if you purchase this tier. And we were like, that always felt weird to us to do that. But actually, we knew that people would appreciate it. So our very first one, we're project funded. Hey, by the way, you guys are all in the credits now. And then the next one was, oh, in that credit screen we have, it's going to have music in it. And that was an add-on to the next one. And then the last, then the one after that was, oh, and also we're going to design a mini game for the credit screen. We already have some very simple concepts. This is something that's not going to take us more than like one developer, maybe a week to do. So it's not going to delay our game. It's not adding scope, but it's like finding those little bits of value to get into every stretch goal is really important to us. So I have to cut this short because of this fire alarm. Somebody just knocked on my door.
Okay. Yeah.
Looks like we do have to leave the building.
We don't want this to be your last Discord stage appearance.
No,
so
exactly.
get out of the building.
I feel like I could easily have gone for another. I know this has been long, but I could have easily gone for another 20 minutes, half an hour, because there's definitely some more bits of value. So we could do a follow-up if you wish. Just let me know. Otherwise, I really appreciated this opportunity. Thank you so much.
All right, everybody in chat, let us know if you want a follow-up to continue this Kickstarter conversation.
And if there's questions in the chat, and we do a follow-up, we can really get into those, because this was supposed to be an AMA as well. So apologize, but I don't know what's going on with this alarm. So
get out of there, Stephane.
Soon.
Yeah,
okay,
get out of there.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Bye. Okay,
Well,
folks.
I'm glad he decided to go. This is not as important.
Okay, so yes, we will follow up with him if he is safe.
Heard Stephane, he can take us down. He's a storyteller. He can take us down long, winding paths. I was like, this. Every question increases his risk quite substantially here. So so like,
yes,
people are going to start tuning in. People are going to start tuning in, right, just to hear, right, all the chaos that's happening in Stephane's background.
Yeah, so we will follow up with Stephane when he is safe, and like his building is safe. Probably in the next few weeks. So we have a spot next week, so maybe I'll reach out. I'll keep you guys updated. But this was nice. This was very informative.
Everybody who's still listening, drop additional questions in the chat. So topics that you would like us to cover, because I've got a few bullet points on things that were still outstanding, but let us know what else you would like to discuss. For you that are still here, I will actually just touch on, I'm going to vibe on the last comment, reviewing stretch goals. So two things. Like one, there's a concept of, you may have heard the phrase surprise and delight. Like that's a marketer concept, but it's usually rooted in, a product, right? You're surprising and delighting with, kind of features. The reveals, right, allowed opportunities for surprise and delight, right? It's not surprising if we learn all about it at day one, right? So that surprise, creates, novelty, releases dopamine. There's a lot of good, benefits. And then, like he just said, it gives us events and marketing beats, right? And so a marketing beat, if you sit down you with a publisher or developer, and they're talking about their presentation, and like, here's our launch plan, here's our marketing beats leading up to the launch plan, here's our marketing beats for the next year after launch, right? This is a Kickstarter campaign that lasts 30 days, right? You want to give yourselves some things to talk about over the course of those 30 days. This is something that you could build in to give you some of those opportunities. The other, I just missed it. I just forgot it. Give me 1 second. Oh, the other thing that's really lovely about holding back your stretch goals is that you can also gather feedback from your community, right? So your backers on Kickstarter, on your community forums, on your Kickstarter page, your backers start getting excited. They start giving you feedback. I wish there was this. I wish there was that, right? You could already have that planned for one of your stretch goals, which is great. But maybe you don't have a plan for your stretch goals. And then you just come out, here are my stretch goals. And then somebody says a great idea that you would actually love to adopt. And you're like, well, sorry, it's not in the stretch goals. This actually gives you the opportunity to, in real time, adjust some of your goals in response to the feedback, right?
Yeah.
Another, this is you might have different opinions on whether this is good or bad, but by waiting for feedback, somebody could say something that somebody could propose a stretch goal that you already have planned. And when you reveal it, it looks like you're actually taking community feedback and responding to those community members. And those community members will then feel ownership and then feel appreciated. They will feel heard, right? So one is you can gather feedback and actually adjust your stretch goals. The other is you can gather feedback and then bonus if that feedback actually is already addressed in your planned stretch goals, but your community members are actually going to feel, your backers are going to feel more invested and involved because it will look like you're actually responding to them specifically. So that's another kind of benefit from holding some of this information back a little bit. The other thing about stretch goals is like I love when people say they want more of something, right? I actually like, even from my playstyle, I like short games, right? I would prefer not to honestly spend 50, 60 hours plus in most games. Zelda's my exception. I'll play 250 hours of every Zelda, but most of the time I like short games. And some of the critiques. What are the critiques of short games? The critiques of short games are they're too short, right? But when somebody tells you your game is too short, what they're really telling you is I want more, which then lends itself to sequels or expansion packs, right? There's a balance, right? You want to provide value. You want to provide enough so that they want more. But if their only critique is, I'm thinking about I'm old, right? So some of the early Metal Gear Solids used to be really short, not anymore. But like the early Metal Gear Solids or the God of Wars or the Devil May Cries, even the Uncharted, like everybody's complaint was these games are too short. Well, guess what? There's a lot of sequels in those franchises, right? Versus somebody not completing the game because it's too long, right? And them getting bored. Like taking this concept to, the Kickstarter model is I want people getting excited. Hopefully we given them enough so that they get excited and they're demanding more. And then we have the opportunity to fulfill some of those demands. Anyways, those are some of my ruminations on that topic.
Yeah.
My hot takes on the stretch goals comments.
Yeah, like stretch goals, I usually like the rule of 3. So you can show a few of your goals like from the get-go and then like kind of blur out the rest. So I've seen a lot of Kickstarter campaigns do that, and it actually like kind of engages the community because like they want to unblur those like bonuses, right? Like they want to get there, and it's usually very successful. I've seen like I think most of the Kickstarter campaigns I've seen that did that, people got really excited to see like how many stretch goals there were, but like they didn't necessarily know what they were.
Yeah, especially for us gamers, because we have this, we have our completion, our collection compulsion, right?
Yeah.
We see that there's a thing there, right? We have to unlock it.
Yeah.
That's what we do as gamers. Like we have to unlock that thing. Cool. All right. Well, thanks everybody for joining us. Hope Stephane's safe. We'll update you on Stephane's status and our follow-up events as soon as we have that scheduled.
Yeah. So have a good one, everyone. I'll end
Thanks,
the
everybody.
stage now.